The mob and gasoline, a billion-dollar ripoff. Beggs and McFarlane out the door, and the high-rolling testimony of Louisiana's governor.
NBC Nightly News with Tom Brokaw.
Good evening. Tonight we begin with a shocking investigative report by Brian Ross on the latest enterprise of organized crime, the mob. The mob goes where the money is, and over the years it has moved into legitimate businesses as well as drugs and vice. It has controlled construction projects, meatpacking operations, the clothing trade. Now, a new ripoff for the mob. And after a 3-month investigation, Brian is prepared to bring us the first of 2 reports.
This is the part of Long Island near New York City that F. Scott Fitzgerald wrote about in The Great Gatsby. Fabulous homes, great wealth. Some of the richest people in the country live here, including the alleged young mafia boss who has just had this place built for him. His name is Michael Francisi, shown here at a party in Florida last year. State and federal law enforcement authorities in New York and Florida say Francisi, who is only in his 30s, is the youngest mafia boss in the country and possibly the richest. Authorities say in the last 5 years, Francisi and some of the men around him have made perhaps as much as $1 billion. Not from heroin or cocaine or prostitution or gambling, but from a new mob business. Gasoline. For more than a year now, FBI agents and police in states along the Atlantic coast have been following the movement of hundreds of millions of gallons of gasoline by companies said to be controlled by the mafia. Authorities say Francisi and other organized crime figures, in a very short period of time, have taken over or set up their own storage terminals, tanker truck fleets, wholesalers, jobbers, a whole network, everything necessary to move gasoline under mob rule from the refinery to the corner gas station.
I would compare them to a pack of jackals.
These men, who asked that their identities be concealed, say their wholesale gasoline business was taken over by mafia thugs who showed up and threatened to kill them if they wouldn't do business the way the mob wanted them to.
Carrying on like this, waving his hands around and going, God damn, it's gonna be done my way. I'm the boss around here. I say what goes on around here. It's gonna be done my way.
And this is the mafia's way. Mob-controlled gasoline companies, often working in the middle of the night, sell and deliver one tanker load after another, and just don't pay the federal and state gasoline taxes they're supposed to. It is a bonanza for the mob. In New York State, for example, the taxes due on just one 8,000-gallon tanker load of regular gasoline come to $2,128. And authorities say mob gasoline companies have for years made tens of thousands of tanker runs without paying taxes and without getting caught.
And the motorist will come here.
Because they don't pay gasoline taxes, the mob sells gasoline to gas stations at prices 3 to 4 cents a gallon lower than legitimate dealers can offer. And these men say even local dealers under contract to major oil companies wanted secret deliveries of the mob's cheap gasoline.
We had Mobil stations, we had Texaco stations, we had Chevron stations, we had Shell stations.
Authorities say the mafia first moved into the gasoline business in New York and is now active in at least 12 other states. By some estimates, the loss in gasoline taxes is as much as $1 billion.
You're talking about billions and billions of gallons of gasoline.
Robert Dempsey, the head of the Florida Department of Law Enforcement, says the mob has been so successful because very little checking is done on taxes due from gasoline wholesalers.
But if Florida and New York and New Jersey were examples, it was obvious that they found the loopholes and they jumped into them. And the potential for it being a nationwide scheme in every state that has gasoline tax revenues is quite obvious.
Florida has been the most aggressive of the states going after the mobsters. 1 month ago in Costa Rica, Florida investigators arranged a secret meeting with this man, a Panamanian lawyer who helped the mob set up its gasoline front companies. And now, Florida investigators have broken the mob's computer codes, making it possible for investigators to find out how business records were falsified to show tax payments when there were none. The mob's own records show transactions with hundreds of gasoline companies. And now, for the first time, industry leaders are talking about their fears of a mafia takeover. Tom Plattis, the president of Highway Oil, one of the country's largest chains.
5 years ago, me talking about the mafia and the gasoline business would have been absolutely a joke. But it's gotten serious where the point that it could very easily happen.
That they could move in and take over?
They could take over a substantial portion of it.
There have been some arrests. Several mob gasoline companies have been put out of business, and prosecutors in Florida and New York are preparing new charges. But as of now, in many places, gasoline is a mob cargo. Brian Ross, NBC News, New York.
Tomorrow night, Brian will show us how the mob hides the millions of dollars that it makes by dodging gasoline taxes. Also coming up in this program tonight, Peter Kent on an emotional funeral in South Africa today, and an accounting of the death toll without news cameras present. Robert Elliott tonight on a young woman who suddenly finds herself without a country, about to be deported from the only family she has ever known.
People who grow the wine, and to all those who enjoy fine wine, Ernest and Julio Gallo give their best. Today's Gallo, all the best a wine can be.
Break free and feel how splendid you are with Vanderbilt, the fragrance created by Gloria Vanderbilt. Let it release the splendor of you. Vanderbilt.
The spirit of the West, captured in Chaps, the cologne by Ralph Lauren. Chaps is for men who are strong and proud and living with a feeling of independence. Chaps, the spirit of the West that's everywhere today.
The big defense contractor General Dynamics is back in hot water with the federal government tonight. The Pentagon announced that General Dynamics has been temporarily suspended from obtaining new contracts with the Defense Department and the federal branch of the government. Today's announcement follows the indictment of 3 General Dynamics executives on charges of fraud. One of them is James Beggs, now the chief administrator of NASA. And NBC's Chris Wallace reports tonight, senior administration officials expect Beggs to resign or take a leave of absence as early as tomorrow. Beggs and the other 2 men were indicted on charges of overbilling the government on a major weapons contract in 1977. Correspondent Wallace also reports the stories about Robert McFarlane's imminent departure from the White House have a new urgency tonight. McFarlane, the president's national security affairs advisor, has been clashing with White House Chief of Staff Donald Regan. And tonight, a senior administration official said McFarlane's resignation is expected shortly. And while all of that is going on around him, the president is trying to decide what to do about a tax reform bill that is steadily making its way out of Congress. This is the bill worked out by the House Ways and Means Committee and opposed by a lot of big business interest. As NBC's congressional correspondent Bob Kerr reports tonight, it may not be all the president wants, but it may be all he'll get.
The president remained non-committal today, but after meeting with him at the White House, Republican congressional leaders indicated that Mr. Reagan would not try to kill the Ways and Means Committee tax bill.
I think he wants to keep the process alive. That's the message I received, which would indicate that he's not going to reject the House Ways and Means package.
The committee, controlled by Democrats, met today to vote final approval of its proposed tax law changes. But the committee's proposal differs from what Mr. Reagan and many House Republicans want. The top individual tax rate, the president's, is lower than the House Republicans or the Ways and Means committees. The personal exemption, the president and House Republicans are more generous than the committee. The deduction for state and local taxes, Mr. Reagan would repeal it. House Republicans limit it. The committee keep it. The top corporate rate, the president and House Republicans propose a lower rate than the committee. Generally, on tax breaks for industry, Mr. Reagan and House Republicans would be more generous than the committee. That's one reason House Republicans today announced they'll fight the committee's proposal with their own.
We think that the anti-business part of the bill certainly could affect the economy of this country, and we don't think our bill will.
With a House floor fight in mind, supporters today gave Ways and Means Committee Chairman Rostenkowski a sledgehammer.
I'm not looking for a fight. I think the President should be pleased with what we've accomplished.
Now that the committee's approved it, the tax bill goes to the House floor next week. And the betting here is that Mr. Reagan won't fight the House on this one because, like Rostenkowski, the President wants a place in tax history books. Bob Kerr, NBC News, at the U.S. Capitol.
There is one good reason Congress and the White House are determined to pass some kind of tax reform this year. It's an explosive campaign issue with enormous popular support, according to the latest NBC News Wall Street Journal poll. Fully two-thirds of the public favor tax reform. Only 18% are opposed. 16% say they aren't sure. But Americans don't think much of the way that Congress has handled the issue. Among voters, only 11% give Congress a good rating on tax reform this year. 45% give it a fair rating. More than one-third of the voters, 36%, said Congress is doing a poor job on tax reform. A vote on textile imports today focused attention on another highly charged issue facing Congress this year. In a head-on challenge to President Reagan's free trade policy, lawmakers late this afternoon approved strict quotas on imported textiles. But the bill did not receive enough support to override President Reagan's expected veto. And the Senate today put aside a measure that would reduce campaign contributions from political action committees, or PACs as they're known. Apparently, a good many senators opposed the stricter limits, but did not want to go on record against them. So they voted to study the bill and debate it again next year.
Some of you are being asked to choose a long-distance phone company. If you don't choose, someone's going to choose for you, and you know how that could make you feel. So if AT&T's clear long-distance connections and full services are important to you, send in your ballot. AT&T Long Distance, for over 100 years. When you reached out, we were there. And you can keep it that way by making the choice yourself.
I had to get this Wagner power roller for my Rembrandt.
This Rubbermaid microwave set for my angel of the kitchen.
Last year, Tommy ran out of film. This year, I ran out for 3M focal film.
He forgot to put these Hanes briefs on his list. Plenty more from Kmart, like Rayovac Smart Packs.
And at Kmart, anybody can feel like me.
Kmart, the saving place.
There's a great new way to knock out bad breath. New Chlorette stick gum. It's the only stick gum that has Actazole with chlorophyll to fight bad breath. Knock out bad breath with Chlorette, the breath deodorant.
Now, another way to spell relief. Use sodium-free Rolaids. Like regular Rolaids, it consumes all the acid required to bring millions 100% relief. Plus, it's rich in calcium. Regular Rolaids and use sodium-free Rolaids for 100% relief.
South Africa today lifted the 4-month state of emergency in 8 districts while keeping it in effect in 30 others. Earlier, as many as 50,000 South Africans went to a funeral for a dozen blacks killed 2 weeks ago. It was one of the biggest gatherings since the state of emergency was imposed. And as NBC's Peter Kent reports tonight, it was largely peaceful.
They sang and danced and chanted, but mourners gathered with some uncertainty. The police and army had said they would not interfere with the mass funeral, but a similar assurance was given 2 weeks ago, when these victims, including a 69-year-old woman and a 2-month-old child, were killed. One big difference today was the presence of newsmen and Western diplomats invited as observers by the grieving families. Tim Carney, the U.S. Embassy's political counselor, said he came out of respect for friends and employees who live in Mamelodi.
My presence is to indicate American support for the principle of peaceful protest.
Some white South Africans came as well.
The killings must stop.
The already emotional gathering was further roused when Winnie Mandela, wife of the best-known prisoner of apartheid, Nelson Mandela, once again defied a government ban on her making political statements.
We are here today to tell you that that day is not far when we shall lead you to freedom. Amandla!
Despite that sort of defiance throughout the day, the police and army stayed away, watching from an overlooking hill. Camera crews, who have been prohibited from covering events like this for the past month, made the most of today's opportunity. The 13 killed in the controversial Mamelodi shooting contributed to South Africa's November death toll of at least 90, which is at least 5 more dead than in the month before the press ban. The statistics seem to contradict the government's contention that newsmen were responsible for much of the unrest and violence. The news cameras did not incite violence here today, but the resulting coverage, domestic and international, will likely increase pressure on the government for an inquiry into what happened here 2 weeks ago. Peter Kent, NBC News, Mamelodi Township, South Africa.
A plot to smuggle $10 million worth of military spare parts to Iran has been broken by U.S. customs agents. Tonight, a retired Turkish Air Force officer and 2 other Turks are being held. They're in custody in New York after being arrested last night in Port Newark. Customs agents caught them trying to buy spare parts for Iranian military aircraft and radar systems. There is an embargo on shipping military goods to Iran, which has been fighting a long war with Iraq. Back in this country, in a New Orleans courtroom today, Louisiana's Governor Edwin Edwards was cross-examined about his finances and his gambling. Edwards is accused of racketeering and fraud, but as NBC's Ken Bodie reports tonight, he insists that he's done nothing wrong.
It's an awfully hard thing to move.
Edwards has spent 12 weeks in federal court in a trial he originally branded a political witch hunt.
Do you feel nervous?
Today was the day of the great face-off, cross-examination of Edwards by Republican U.S. Attorney John Voles. Edwards made $2 million in a complicated hospital deal while he was out of office. The prosecution has sought to establish that Edwards did very little work for that money, implying it was his influence as governor that was for sale. Edwards described his roles in the deal as that of lawyer, consultant, and door opener, but the defense insists that everything he did was as private citizen Edwards, not Governor Edwards. The jury, mostly ordinary and poor Louisianans, was fascinated as the prosecution sought to establish the governor's casino gambling debts as a motive, that he needed the cash. One casino sent 2 employees to Baton Rouge to pick up nearly $800,000 from the governor, cash in suitcases. Edwards testified that his gambling has never been a secret, that he always paid his debts or collected his winnings in cash. He produced a little black book, his only record of winnings and losings. He said he often gambled under aliases at the suggestion of the casino, because he was a well-known public figure. Punch Governor Edwin Edwards into a casino computer, and out will come the aliases T. Lee, E. Nuff, and T. Wong. In testimony, Edwards repeatedly said he is not a detail man, but today on cross-examination he was meticulously prepared, often citing specific pages of his grand jury testimony from memory. When it was over, the governor said he thought he'd had a good day in court.
You didn't see any fun and games today? What? I had fun.
The Edwards defense team is costing an estimated $10,000 a day, and today the governor told his lawyers, earn your fees. Both sides say the case could go to the jury by this weekend. Ken Bodie, NBC News, New Orleans.
For more safety in the workplace, the federal government today proposed new limits on the exposure of workers to 4 chemicals suspected of causing cancer and other diseases. The chemicals include benzene and formaldehyde. If approved, the rules would affect more than 2 million workers in this country. Sources inside Toyota say the Japanese company now has tentatively decided to build its first American car assembly plant in Georgetown, Kentucky, which is near Lexington. An official announcement is expected next week. The cost of the new plant is put at $500 million.
Here's you. Here's your competition. One of you will call AT&T small business experts. One of you won't. One of you will find out how to use long distance
to cover your customer base,
to beat your competition. So who's going to call? You or the other guy? AT&T long distance services. Talk with us. AT&T, the right choice.
The remarkable drop of oil of Olay. Sheer and light, it quickly penetrates to replenish your skin's youthful look. It is the one drop 50 million women believe in every day. Oil of Olay.
A woman in my position can't worry about dentures coming loose.
Fixodent and forget it. Fixodent has a special formula that helps fix loose spots for a strong, long-lasting hold.
Let's do it again.
Use Fixodent and forget it.
They gave it a 4-cylinder, 16-valve jewel of an engine, and the most sophisticated suspension outside the racing world, and even a rear aerodynamic wing. Then they gave it a name, the Mercedes-Benz 2.316. And the rest is performance history, or soon will be. For 1986, Mercedes-Benz widens the gap.
The opposition to Philippines President Ferdinand Marcos was heard clearly and dramatically once again today. First, Corazon Aquino, widow of the murdered opposition leader, announced that she will run against Marcos in the February election. She said the country had been devastated by 20 years of Marcos rule and that she represented contrast and change.
Mr. Marcos is the cause of all of the suffering and hardship in this country. I think the contrast is very necessary in order to convince the people that there is still a chance for this country, that there is still hope.
Tonight, there were new protests against yesterday's verdict that cleared the head of the armed forces and 25 others in the murder of Mrs. Aquino's husband, Benigno. Her supporters paraded through part of Manila to boost her candidacy and to protest that government verdict. The challenge to Marcos is the subject of John Chancellor's commentary tonight. John?
Tom? The latest news, as we've seen from the Philippines, raises again some difficult questions about the rule of President Marcos. The main question: is the United States stuck again with an aging dictator who's going down the drain? Will the Philippines be a replay of Nicaragua or Iran? Washington put the Shah on the throne of Iran, and when he fell, the place became a rogue nation and a menace to peace. Washington put a dictator named Anastasio Somoza into power in Nicaragua, and when his regime was thrown out, Nicaragua became one of the real headaches in this hemisphere. In both cases, the United States ended up backing the wrong horse. But there's a difference in the Philippines. In Iran, and to some extent in Nicaragua, the United States was not popular with the people, and that's not true in the Philippines. The United States once owned the Philippines and gave it its independence. Ties with America are strong, forged in peace and war. There are a lot of American Legion posts in the Philippines. Younger Filipinos are not as pro-American as their parents, but there is still a reservoir of respect for the United States, and that means there is still considerable maneuvering room for American policy. The United States will not be any less popular with the people of the Philippines if it leans on Marcos and forces him to make real reforms. And if Marcos gets into the kind of trouble that toppled Somoza or the Shah, the main interest of the United States has to be the friendship of the Philippine people. Being nice to Marcos could lose that friendship. Being tough with him will only reinforce it. Which is commentary for this evening, Tom.
Thanks, John. The city of Bhopal, India was paralyzed by a general strike today, 1 year after the Union Carbide gas leak that killed more than 2,000 people. As demonstrators burned Union Carbide's chairman in effigy, the company gave $3,000 to each of its workers left jobless when the pesticide plant was forced to close last July.
Tales of heartburn from Gaviscon antacid. Once a man ate all of Italy
Pasta with tomato sauce and garlic.
in one night
And the garlic.
and discovered the only thing worse than daytime heartburn
Heartburn.
is nighttime heartburn. Fortunately, there was Gaviscon, specially formulated so it not only gives fast relief during the day, it even works at night when you're lying down. Gaviscon antacid, it even works lying down.
The age of battery flashlights is over. Introducing the First Alert rechargeable flashlight. The powerful new flashlight that never needs batteries. The First Alert rechargeable flashlight is always bright because it has a unique power plug for easy recharging and a krypton bulb for a powerful beam. Get the new First Alert rechargeable flashlight.
from First Alert.
I'm Bryant Gumbel. Tomorrow morning on Today, we'll preview college football's battle for number one.
I'm Carol Marine, also actress Kim Basinger and Shauna Na.
That's tomorrow morning on Today.
We asked 1,000 doctors if stranded on an island, which would they want? Tylenol, extra strength Tylenol, Advil, or Bayer? More doctors chose Bayer, nearly 2 to 1 over extra strength Tylenol. Bayer, the wonder drug that works wonders.
Dad, my nose is stuffy.
Oh, you caught my cold. Neosynephrine cleared up my nose right away. See? And there's neosynephrine for your nose, too.
Neosynephrine, nothing's faster or more effective. It lets you breathe a lot easier.
There are thousands of poignant stories on America's southern borders every week, stories of people crossing into the United States illegally, desperate to start new lives. Tonight, Robert Elliott has the unusual story of a young woman caught between these two worlds, caught by surprise.
Illegal aliens crossing the Rio Grande, border agents waiting for them.
Are you still out east?
Yes, sir. I'm going to have a right away for that.
Pick up.
Okay.
It's a cat and mouse game that's played out all along the Texas border, something Lori Burr never thought much about until now. She's been in this country for 16 years, but immigration officials now say she's an illegal alien and should be returned to Mexico. The ruling has torn her family apart.
I can't even talk about it.
In 1966, Lori was abandoned by her natural mother in Mexico and adopted by Roberta and Bill Burr, who were working there as missionaries. They returned to the United States and everything was fine until Lori applied for a Social Security card. That's when her family found out that because of a mistake in the original paperwork, the adoption was technically illegal.
I think the hardest part would be leaving my family, my friends, and everybody that's been with me.
As a last resort, the Burrs have turned to the United States Congress.
Surely we cannot let bureaucratic red tape stand in the way of justice.
If Congress doesn't help Lori Burr, she'll become a deportable alien and could be forced to leave her family in the United States, cross the Rio Grande, and return to Mexico. Immigration officials are watching the bill very carefully. If it fails, they'll enforce the law.
Don't you think that deporting her would be kind of cold-hearted if it comes to that?
I'm not going to comment on that. It's part of the job. You know, if you have to do it, you have to do it.
So Lori waits for a final ruling, uncertain of her future. She always assumed she was an American citizen. Now she wonders why, all of a sudden, the country doesn't want her anymore. Robert Elliott, NBC News, El Paso.
That's Nightly News for this Tuesday night. I'm Tom Brokaw. I'll see you tomorrow night.
Coming up next on The Scene at 6, Vanderbilt's head football coach calls it quits. And the governor calls a contempt of court ruling against Correction Commissioner Steve Norris a bizarre example of justice.
Also tonight, the FBI says it is furious at a Nashville judge. And from Unit 4, we'll ask the question, does race affect where we live and move in Nashville today?
These stories and more news coming up next on The Scene at 6.
Everyone's rushing to Wendy's. They're getting their money and waiting for the doors to open. Because Wendy's fresh quarter-pound singles are now just 99 cents. They're laughing. They're dancing in the streets. They're swinging on over to pick up fresh Wendy's singles for just 99 cents. So don't hang around. Drag a friend along. He'll love those fresh Wendy's singles for just 99 cents. But you better shake a leg. You're running out of time. Choose fresh. Choose Wendy's for just 99 cents.